Hello, good morning students. In the last video we discussed positive features of industrialization. Of course there are many positive features of industrialization, but there are also some negative features of industrialization. So in this video we are going to discuss what are the negative features of industrialization in India. First, gaps between targets and achievement. There has been considerable gap between target and actual achievement except some years in 80s. Our industrial growth rate has been found below what actually we targeted. According to an estimate, average shortfall is about 20% in each of the 5-year plans. For example, we have projected our industrial growth rate would be about 8% per annum, but during the planning period, our industrial growth rate has been found to 6.2%. So there is a gap between the target and actual achievement. Second, industrial growth rate has not been consistent. Of course, it is true that industrial growth rate is quite impressive in compared to other growth rates like agriculture or overall economic growth rate. But what is the limitation? The our industrial growth rate has not been consistent. There is no consistency in our industrial growth rate. There is many ups and downs, zigzag in our industrial growth rate. For example, in first decade it was 7% per annum, second decade fall to 5.5%, in third decade 4%, etc. So in 1981 to 1991, very high growth rate, 7.8%. In the second year, next year, it has fallen to just 0.6%. In next year, 93-94, 2.3%. For example, during 2009-10, it was about 9.5%. In the next year, it has fallen to 8.8%. During 12 plan, 3.6%, etc. In recent years, obviously, due to COVID-19, many are under depression, industrial growth rate has been very low. So, as per you can observe from the data that our industrial growth rate has not been consistent over the year. This is the second limitation, second negative features of industrialization. Third and most important, little impact on employment. Of course, it is true that our industrial growth rate is quite impressive. We have done significant progress in terms of industrialization during the planning period, but the impact on employment is very low. महबूब उल हक का एक फेमस सेंटेंस है कि it is not important how much more is to be produced, but it is more important by whom it is to be produced. कितना ज़्यादा प्रोडक्शन हो रहा है वो ज़रूरी नहीं है. ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज को एम्प्लॉयमेंट मिल रही है कि नहीं रही, वो ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. मगर so far is concerned with our industrial growth rate, our industrial growth rate has not been able to provide employment opportunities to large section of population. Okay, in industrial growth rate, industrial sector, the average growth rate of employment is about 2%, while in our labor force is increasing about 2.5% per annum. So, while sectoral distribution of GDP is concerned, about 45% of working population is still depending on agriculture. While industrial sectors, the secondary sector provides employment to about only 25% of population. So, our industrial growth rate has not been able to absorb the working population. This is the limitation of industrial growth rate. Very little impact on employment. Unsatisfactory performance of public sector. In the last video we discussed that there has been significant progress in public sector during the planning period, both in terms of number of public sector enterprise and total investment made in this enterprise. From 5 public sector enterprise to about 235 public sector enterprise, and just rupees 29 crore investment to about more than 10 lakh crore investment. So both in terms of investment as well as number of enterprises. But performance of many public enterprises are really disappointing. Quite a good number of public sector enterprises are running in heavy losses. The rate of return on investment is very, very low in many public sector enterprises. And once upon a time, कुछ ऐसे पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस है जो पहले बहुत प्रॉफिट करते थे. For example, Air India, BSNL, they are also running in heavy losses. Okay, so हमारी एक्सपेक्टेशन क्या थी कि पब्लिक सेक्टर ग्रो करेगा, पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस से जो प्रॉफिट अर्न होगा वो हम लोग री इन्वेस्टमेंट में यूज करेंगे, दूसरे डेवलपमेंट प्रोजेक्ट में उसको यूज करेंगे. वो एक्सपेक्टेशन हमारी फुलफिल नहीं हुई है, बिकॉज द परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस इज नॉट up to the mark, up to the expectation. Second, underutilization of industrial capacity. ये उसका ही reason है that in many public sector enterprises as well as some of the private sector enterprises, they are working with excess capacity, about 70 to 85%, 80% capacity, about 20 to 30% industrial capacity, installed capacity remains unutilized. There are many reasons for that. Shortage of raw material, frequent power failure, obstructive government policy, etc., demand situation, etc. But if there is the capacity is not utilized, it means it is a sheer waste of resources. और ये waste economic point of view और social point of view दोनों के point of view खराब है. भारत जैसा डेवलपिंग नेशन उसको बैन नहीं कर सकता. Okay, this is a sheer waste of our resources, limited resources. Next, regional imbalances, regional disparity. This has always been the problem of Indian economy. Industrialization में भी यही है. Only few states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka account for about 60 to 65% of total industrial capacity. Many incentives have been made by the government to attract investment in relatively backward states like Bihar, Odisha, etc., etc. But private sectors are not making investment in these states. There is a regional imbalance, regional disparity. तो एक वर्ड है कि ट्रिकल डाउन इफेक्ट. इकोनॉमिक्स में एक वर्ड है ट्रिकल डाउन इफेक्ट. Trickle down effect is not in evidence ऐसा लिखा है. So what is trickle down effect? Trickle down effect means it is an economic proposition. Reduce tax on businesses and wealthy to stimulate and a means of investment in the short period, which will be benefited to the society at large in the long run. तो हम लोग बिजनेसेस पर, वेल्दी लोग पर टैक्स इसीलिए नहीं बढ़ा रहे कि उसको इन्वेस्टमेंट करे और उसका एडवांटेजेस, उसका बेनिफिट पूरे सोसाइटी को मिले लार्ज. मगर वो ट्रिकल डाउन इफेक्ट ये ऑन पेपर रहा है. ट्रिकल डाउन इफेक्ट की जो एविडेंस है वो नहीं मिल रही. गवर्नमेंट ने इतने फिस्कल मेजर्स किए, many subsidies are given to direct investment in this area, but these areas are lagging far behind in compared to industrially developed states. Okay, अभी भी प्राइवेट एंटरप्रेन्योर्स को अट्रैक्ट वही कर रहा है, साउंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फैसिलिटीज जहाँ होनी चाहिए, जहाँ मार्केट के अलग अलग फॉर्म है वही इन्वेस्टमेंट करेंगे. ये दिस स्टेट्स आर स्टिल लैगिंग बिहाइंड इन कंपेयर टू advanced states. Next, industrial sickness. Obviously, in public sector enterprises and most of the small scale industries, middle scale industries, they are suffering from the problem of industrial sickness. और जितनी industrial sickness होगी उतना unemployment का problem ज़्यादा aggravate होगा. Okay, so obviously due to industrial sickness, the problem of unemployment has become aggravated due to industrial sickness. Elite oriented consumption, this is also very very important point कि इंडस्ट्रियल ग्रोथ रेट हमारा हुआ है. वी हैव अचीव्ड कंसिडरेबल इंडस्ट्रियल ग्रोथ रेट ड्यूरिंग द प्लानिंग पीरियड. मगर किसके लिए हुआ है? द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्ट इज ओनली फॉर क्लास, नॉट फॉर मास, ऐसा कहा जा सकता है. द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ कंज्यूमर ड्यूरेबल्स लाइक एयर कंडीशनर, रेफ्रिजरेटर, कार, बाइक, इसके साथ ब्रेवरीज, चॉकलेट, ऐसा एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. दिस इंक्रीज ऑफ प्रोडक्शन, वो एलिट ओरिएंटेड कंजम्पशन, दैट दिस इज द प्रोडक्ट्स which catered the needs of only urban classes, upper urban classes and rural elite classes. It is not for mass. तो हमारा प्रोडक्शन क्लास के लिए हुआ है, मास के लिए नहीं हुआ. तो दिस इज नोन एज डिस्टॉर्ट्स द पैटर्न ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट. उसको करेक्ट करने के लिए क्या होना चाहिए कि वी शुड ऑल्सो reframe our priority, that which production of which goods or services should be given first priority or preferences. We have to correct the pattern of distorts investment. Last, environmental cost of industrialization. It is quite apparent, आप लोग देख सकते हैं, that growth of industries has adversely effect on our environment. It leads to ecological imbalances. Many forms of pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, air pollution rise due to not rapid but hazardous growth. Or this is the problem. Many measures have been initiated by the government के एंटी पॉल्यूशन मेजर्स तो बनाए हैं, मगर प्रॉब्लम जैसे ही हमारा और स्टेज में है और एरिया में है, यहाँ भी है इम्प्लीमेंटेशन. ड्यू टू पुअर इम्प्लीमेंटेशन, ड्यू टू इनफेक्टिव इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ दिस लॉज, द पॉल्यूशन हैज बीन इंक्रीजिंग डे बाय डे. ओके, so this is also one of the negative features of our industrialization. So I am repeating, there is a gap between targets and actual achievement. Industrial growth rate has not been consistent. There is many ups and downs. It has made little impact on employment. This is the reason why even today in GDP, primary sector or agricultural sector occupies the central place. Public sector enterprises, performance of public sector enterprises is quite disappointing. Many public sector enterprises are running in heavy losses. Industrial underutilization of industrial capacity, 20 to 30% capacity remains unutilized. रीजनल इम्बैलेंस है, और सबसे ज़्यादा अभी जो सफ़र हुए हैं माइग्रेंट लेबरर, वो एग्जाम्पल है, एविडेंस है रीजनल इम्बैलेंस. बिहार के, यूपी के, उड़ीसा के लेबर को अगर उसके एरिया में ही काम मिलता, उसके नज़दीक में ही काम मिलता, तो अभी जो कोविड-19 में माइग्रेंट लेबरर्स का इतना इश्यू हुआ वो इतना नहीं होता. क्यों इतना हुआ? बिकॉज रीजनल इम्बैलेंसेस, रीजनल डिस्पैरिटीज इन इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन, देन इंडस्ट्रियल सिकनेस, elite oriented consumption, and last, environmental cost of industrialization. That's all for today. Thank you very much.